love that you're asking me this question because when I see myself in Morocco, I feel that like in a lot of sense, I belong here, but I also don't belong here. It's two truths that exist in different contexts, but they're both real for me. I feel the same way in the US. I felt the same way when I went to Bali, Indonesia. I felt the same way pretty much like everywhere. So
I get that. Do you feel like, can you feel like you're, even though you're on the ground, do you feel like you're kind of watching from above and seeing a bigger picture?
I feel that I feel that I am like I feel that when I am fully taking care of myself and like really having the practices that allows me to spiritually connect, to like really carve a container for me to connect to my spirit, and to really do the practices that I need to do, take care of my body and like to be disciplined on doing things that makes me happy. And when I and we all like sometimes like just like slack off, right? And it's
Yeah.
fine, normal, but like every time I slack off when I'm not like working out, taking care of my body, like not having my spiritual practices, not taking the time to enrich my mind with all the new stuff that I'm curious about, that I want to read about, because it gives me so much peace. And when I'm not doing all of that, I just feel that like I don't feel like I'm belonging. But what I'm
Hmm.
actually really realizing is like what I'm in Morocco, what I'm in Bali, what I'm in the US, I belong everywhere as soon as I'm taking care and honoring my soul.
Welcome to season 4, episode 100 of the Camp Fifi Uncensored podcast. What an incredible milestone to be able to share with you all. And we're so excited for what's coming up. This season, we're going to be featuring powerful women, and we're kicking off with the incredible Ghizlaine, who is a former AI scientist, a conscious explorer, a TED Talk speaker, and the creator of Limitless Mindset Academy. I cannot wait for you to sit in and listen to the first part of our conversation. So grab that cannoli and grab that coffee, because here we go. Hi, beautiful.
Hey,
How are you?
good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I love the backdrop. It looks like you're in a loft.
I'm in Morocco.
You're
I literally just got in Morocco like 2 days ago, for the event that I'm hosting. So I'm actually like at my grandpa's place right now.
incredible. Some of my most favorite architecture. I mean, I always have imagined, I think I share this with you, or maybe I didn't, that since I've been there to work, I've always wanted to go back and build a home there.
Are you serious, Felicia?
I'm really, really serious. I'm
When
not
did you
sure.
go?
I'm not, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
What were
when
you
did
going
you
to
go
say?
to Morocco?
So I was in Morocco in, I think it was either 2015, it was 2015. I was doing a movie called War Dog. I was with Jonah Hill, and it was the last part of our filming. They'd been in many countries and then came back to the United States, and I think filmed in Vegas and Los Angeles and Miami. And they had started in Europe, and because the story takes place in Miami, he needed to look tan, and they
Oh,
they
wow.
weren't really crazy about how he was turning up looking by the time they got to Los Angeles. They called me in, did a test, they loved it, and he was like, "She's going with me from here on out." And
That's
so,
amazing.
yeah, and I'd always wanted to go, and so I was really, really happy. We were in Casablanca, Rabat, and Saleh.
Oh, nice. Best places.
And where are you? Where in Morocco are you right now?
I'm right now in Rabat. So my family like lives in Rabat. And then tomorrow I'm gonna be in Casablanca. Because I have the Limitless Girls event that I talked to you about. So it's gonna happen in Casablanca. So I have to like be organized, and it's happening in 2 weeks. And then right after that, I have two weddings. I have a wedding in Marrakesh and then a wedding in Tangier. So everything has happened at the same time. So I'm gonna be like a little bit all over before we start our program and before we start the round on October 7th. So now I'm like all about, and it's been 2 years, Felicia, I haven't came here. So for me, it's almost a cultural shock.
I was going to ask because, I think in my observation, now it's interesting because when I was there in 2015, I had several locals, so to speak, Moroccan women who were part of my team, we really adored each other and had a great understanding of each other. And in our in our getting to know one another at the very end, we had gone to an open market. I said I wanted to get some spices to bring back for gifts. And as we're going through the market, I randomly started asking questions about, what are the feelings about, like, if somebody goes through a divorce, or what if somebody is gay, or what if, and it was like the conversations were shut down. And I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I was literally going, okay, if Morocco is considered like the cosmopolitan of North Africa, like as it always has been in my mind, I would think from all the cultures and all the countries that it's so close to, and all the integration of, many cultures, it potentially would be at least open to the conversation, even if the belief systems weren't such, right? Um, but it was really interesting because it was like, we don't talk about this. And maybe it was in a public place that we didn't talk about it. Maybe in the privacy of a closed door, we would have. But what was really fascinating to me was I came back from Morocco and I said to my many female friends, we're really, really fortunate to be able to have open conversations about all things, our body, our education, our rights, all the things, and be able to openly have a conversation, which was kind of ironic after we voted in somebody to lead our country who sadly has, like, influenced a lot of negative things that still sadly are going on. And as a woman yourself who was born there, I wanted to actually start with you as a little girl in Morocco and know what you were experiencing, what you were observing, what you were thinking, and what you had opportunity wise gifted to you that I don't know if that what your background was. So I'd love to start from there. Can we do that?
Yes, absolutely. That's just such a great question. Thank you for the question. You look beautiful, by the way. It's so good to see your face.
My God, I feel the same with you. You just are like so delicious.
Thank you, sweetheart. So yeah, absolutely. So you're absolutely right to emphasize on your point. It is actually really, really sad how I'm not trying to picture like a bad picture of Morocco, but like if you're gay, if you're right now, they saw like two girls kissing each other behind a car and they're in jail. So it's like just really like sad and heartbreaking. And it's just so interesting to really like look at the overall picture because it is very hypocritical in a lot of ways because it's
Mhm,
so rich. There is
mm,
so many the West, it's so open to the Western world. It's multicultural. It really is the mecca, and people are amazing, and there's so many beautiful food and life. And seriously, like I was like, since I'm here, and I am like just like, wow, Moroccans are just so funny. Like they just keep making jokes after joke. They don't take anything seriously. But at the same time, if you see like how like there is not a lot of freedom of speech and there should
mm,
be, but it's almost like I almost like feel that they uncover all the pain through humor and through jokes. So that's like something that is very like apparent to me when I come here because a lot of people are struggling with money and people are
mm.
struggling with like it's not easy, right?
No.
um and you can't fully be yourself in a lot of ways because it's a monarchy. And anyways, I don't want to make
No, no,
this
no. I
talk
love
very
this
rebellious.
conversation. I love this conversation because, this is about gathering around the campfire. This is about really having authentic conversations. This is
Okay.
about really inspiring people, understanding where people come from, how they overcome, how they created their professional as well as personal life, what makes people tick. This is who I've always been since I was a little girl. What makes people tick? How did they become who they become? And want to share that with the world. So I love this conversation.
Okay,
Don't
good.
stop.
Okay. So yeah, so when I actually am looking at it from this perspective, as I am like especially like having gotten out of Morocco for like 2 years and being in the United States and Indonesia and Bali. So I was like there experiencing different cultures and soaking that in. And then I come here, and as soon as I actually land in the airport, first of all, it was just like it's been 2 years, and so I was in the airplane and I was like hearing all Moroccans like talking. I was like having this like smile because they're just so funny. And then as soon as I landed in the airport, I had like this like coffee lady who make the coffees. Like the first thing I came
Yeah.
out, and then I just like go there, and the first thing is like she's like making jokes with me, and she's like, "Do you want to put me in your suitcase and like bring me back with you next time?" Stuff like that. And they just really have a subtle humor that is just so funny, but at the same time, just as I said, like a lot of pain and a lot of misfortune. But so to bring this back to, like, for me, it's like I'm like born and raised here, so I'm kind of like really familiar with the
Mhm.
culture. I'm really familiar. It's kind of like hard to really describe the humor, to really describe um like why do I specifically think that is really funny. But it's probably because I'm also like born here, you know?
Absolutely. And to your point, I mean, I don't think culturally, although culturally it's very different, I think any of us who go through a painful moment or a life have to find things to override that, to keep our minds and our souls, with purpose. And humor is why, love and laughter, it's like, that's those are the most healing things. So it's got to be out of just sheer necessity, because not to again interrupt, but I know that when I was there, what I was making versus what our Moroccan crew was making was night and day. And you could just see all the suffering that was going on there. And I'm not saying that there aren't wealthy people, but it is a kingdom, it is a
Oh yeah.
monarchy. And, for those who have and the those that don't. So,
But also
so
within like, sorry, sorry, go ahead.
no, please do go
But
continue.
so within the monarchy, like it's like there's a lot of richness and wealth, and I mean it's a monopoly almost, but there is like 1% of the population that is actually very wealthy. Like there is a lot of like there is such a huge like disparity in terms of like social classes. There is like the really wealthy, and there is the rest that are in really really bad conditions. But it's all actually just so interesting because it really, like, I mean, religion has a big part to play in that, because I was like coming back home, and I was like I took a cab to come back home. And I love people usually, they kind of, when they come to Morocco, or like even girls like me, like girls who kind of like to dress up a little bit, wearing stuff like
Mhm.
that, like I
Mhm.
love my things to be tight. I love to feel sexy in my
Mhm.
body. I love to really feel beautiful, and I just cannot be any other way. I'm like, and so
But back home, that's got to be really like that's a I was completely covered up there for the
yeah.
sake of like while in Rome, act as the Romans. So even though I'd be in the middle of the desert shooting or whatever, I had full long sleeves. I was here. I had the scarf wrapped around my neck in case I had to put it over my head. I looked really artsy fartsy. Matter of fact, most men thought I was from Marrakesh. My hair was
Oh,
really long and naturally curly and fair freckle face, and they would just come up to me and either start speaking Arabic or French. And I'd be
Oh,
like,
wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was like really surprised. I didn't expect it. But
Yeah,
getting back to
absolutely.
you, what's interesting, I also worked with somebody who came down the elevator with a dress above her knees, and these men gave her hell. They gave her hell. And that was why I never exposed myself, because I was like, I don't need to like draw. It's enough that I have to like go from one hotel to another like midnight and feel safe. And I was always chaperoned, but I was going to play the game as if to just out of respect and to not cause friction.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you're actually absolutely right. 'Cause, like, it's like there's no reason to like provoke, anyone. Like you're there doing your business, and it is what it is. But I guess like girls like me in general, they are kind of like scared on like going and like taking a public cab, which I kind of like really I grew up in a family where I grew up in like the people who worked for me, like the maids and the drivers, and thanks God I had the opportunity to like be able to grow up in a family that like allowed me to have that. But I'm not saying that I'm like from a rich family. Like my family is actually I come from both sides, where my mom's side is like not rich at all, and like the opposite, like my father's side is like wealthy. So it's just interesting that I experienced both sides completely. And so actually like the maids and the drivers and all of those, they're like my sisters and my brothers.
Yeah.
So I'm so close to them. So it's a totally different social class, but I can go and like sit with them and have really long conversations and laughters. And I'm so curious and I want to know what's on their mind, and I want to hear them out. And so like when I go like this, and I would of course I'm going to take a cab, a public cab, and then we're having a conversation. So like I just hopped in, and then it just happened like right now before coming in. And I just hopped in, and he's like, oh, and he started speaking to me. He started making a joke. I was like, I want to go toward the mega mall. We have a mall called Mega Mall. I was like, I want to go toward the mega mall. He's like, mega mall or mega mall? Just random joke, because the LL you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
it differently, whatever. And
yeah.
so as I am like say as he's saying that, I'm like, so we started a conversation. I'm like, how's it go? He's like, oh, I didn't used to live here. I used to live in Italy. Where do you live? I said I live in I live in the US. And I was like, what brought you here? And he's like, destiny. He's like, destiny. I'm like, what do you mean by destiny? And Felicia, you clearly know that I'm like, oh, wait, let me finish the thought first, because I just like want to jump and tell you everything all at once.
I love it. I'm so excited.
Because then he's like, well, it's destiny. It's my destiny. And I'm like, it's his destiny to be in Morocco. And I'm like, and then I just like stopped talking, and he's like, you don't think so? And I'm like, I mean, it's and like I was like, what do you mean by destiny? It's like what God wants for you. And I'm like, and I didn't say anything. And then I'm like, I don't really agree. I think God wants for you what you want for yourself. So God just have to communicate with God, and that's you create your destiny with the help of God. But it's not just there. I said that train of thought is just an excuse to really like put all the blame on the
Mm,
circumstances and on
mm.
others, and not actually put in any effort to make things happen for yourself, and to ask God what you truly want, and like support that with your own desire and action and focus. And Felicia, that I'm all about this. So it's like
Oh,
he
yeah.
could say that to like he got the wrong person to like be like, oh, so
No, he got the right person. He got the right
yes,
person
I love
because you
that.
made him, because you're going to leave him with this thinking process. And whether it's today, tomorrow, a year from now, he will never forget that conversation,
Yeah,
brief
I
as
love
it may have
that.
been. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're absolutely right. Because he's like, it's like, yeah, he's like, you're right. And then after he didn't say anything, he didn't try. Usually they really argue and they think they know it all and that. So yes, you're absolutely right. But like this is what brings me to the point that we were talking about earlier, is that religion is
Mm,
like making them think that it's actually all it's like the destiny. It's like destiny. Like they don't, there is not this mentality like there is in the United States of like, I'm a powerful creator of my reality. Like I'm making things happen. And I think I actually got exposed to a lot of these concepts as I moved to the US, but it's not incurred in the culture. The culture is really really in the victimhood mentality,
Mhm.
which is the source of like all pain, you know?
Yeah, the victim versus the victor. And I definitely, it's interesting how you had said earlier about the class system, and though there is the 1% wealthy, the rest are really hurting. And I really felt that. Like when I'm traveling, I pick up on that stuff, like where I'm not even looking for it. I'm just like, oh God, it doesn't matter if
Wow.
it's Maui or Mexico or Morocco. I immediately feel like the earth, and I feel like who's come from it and who's present in it and what's going on. And it actually, I'm so for capitalism, but I'm also not for suffering. And so it makes for me personally, like I don't know if uncomfortable is the word, but just so conscious, so sensitive. And I don't know that everybody's walking around like that, because like you said, they're either in survival mode and they're just trying to get by and know that, in that environment, speaking up and speaking out, uh, you know, you'll pay a price for it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, but it's like the survival, it is really, there is such a big portion. It's all about survival. And it is honestly like heartbreaking because I seriously like feel that pain and I've been feeling it since I am here. I've been really feeling it and I've been just doing my best to like kind of like separate myself from that energy because everyone has something to talk to complain about and it's real. I'm not saying they're complaining. I'm just saying, like we have a big part, but there is also like where you are and like and the government and all these like
Yeah.
factors. So
So let me ask you, so here you are, a little girl, and you thankfully have this very balanced exposure, because I think for any of us who have a balance of exposure, really can appreciate all sides of things versus
totally.
just like this little nugget and you don't know anything else. And it allows you to be more empathetic and more conscious in how you want to go out into the world and make an impact. So as a little girl, what were you thinking? What were your opportunities? What weren't your opportunities? Like, how was it that, little you got out of Morocco and got this incredible education and went on to do incredible things? So let's start with the little girl.
Yeah, thank you for asking me this question. Wow, that's like it's gonna bring up some stuff.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm basically as a little girl, I guess like I was always kind of like good in math and I was always good at school for a reason that I can't really explain. I was also like I would do my homework. Like I love technical stuff. So I actually would just really be a studious student. At the same time, I would be a mess because I would be like so like rebellious in
Mm.
class and I would like make like so much like noise and stuff like that, but I would always like have the good grades and I would always, but it would be kind of like the life of the party in a lot of ways, but at the same time always having the good grades and always like backing things up so my parents couldn't. So it was just like natural for me. And then after that, I guess what I knew is that I wanted to go to Europe. I wanted to leave Morocco, and I don't know why. It was just in me. I wanted to go to Europe. I knew that I'm gonna have my baccalaureate at the time when you're 18, and then I'm gonna go to Europe to pursue my study. And I would have these visions of like me being in Europe, exploring and just like being part of like some schools. And that's kind of like what was always there. So I did that. And then after that, I decided I wanted to come to the United States. So I came to the US. But I guess like as a little girl, to actually answer your question, I really wasn't thinking that much. I was just good at what I was doing and I wasn't really questioning anything at all. I was going through my programming. I knew I had to get good grades. I was having all the validation from my family. The more I would get all these good grades or like good girl and things like that. So I kept having the good grades. I would get all the love from having all the A's and stuff like that. And so I kept doing that. And then like unconsciously, right? And so after that, it happened that I got this chance to get a scholarship to UC Berkeley for my master's, which has brought me to the US. And I think that being in the United States has been a moment that has been very like pivotal to me.
Hmm.
That has been kind of like a cultural shock in a lot of ways.
I would
Specifically,
imagine.
oh my God, yeah, specifically when I would just like start working. I was working in Silicon Valley and I was just sitting at my desk and like coding algorithms and I would like see everyone either talking about football
Yeah. Yes.
or either talking about football or and I would actually like see everyone like almost as if people are all like wearing a mask, as if like
Hmm.
they're in the corporate world, as if they're
Hmm.
trying to act like I am the thing. I am the shit. Excuse my word,
Hmm.
but that's like the
No.
best way to describe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would see around me and I would be like, wow, this is just crazy. Everyone's acting a role, everyone's acting so important. Everyone is acting like there's something like, and then it just like, it was just kind of like a play with me. And I was a game, like I was like seeing things as if they were in a movie. And I'm like just
Hmm.
sitting there and I'm just like, and then I'm sitting there doing this thing, getting my amazing paycheck. Like I started my salary at $200,000, like my first money that I started to work. And then I'm like seeing all of this and me doing that work. And I'm just like, there must be more. I'm just like,
Hmm.
there is something off that I don't know what that is, but I would see people like almost having their bodies as like a suit, and like acting in a different way and then having different conversations with me and having different conversation between each other and having it was just like kind of like messed up with my mind a little bit. And I was like, okay, well, so that's basically because when I see characters in Morocco, they're completely different from the characters in the United States. They're completely different from my character here and there. It's just so interesting to see, completely different from the characters that are in Europe, because I lived in
Hmm.
Europe as well for a long time. And then I was like, wow, like how like who are we, like how are we programmed to be this way, like what's the source of it all, why did I land here doing this work, making all this money but feeling like empty, like feeling that like I'm making these companies richer and everyone is like playing a role here and everyone like hates their job and everyone is like stressed out. I can see everyone's like legs like shaking because they have to like, and I'm like, what, wait, like did I do all this schooling, did I do all of that for this? But it really like was the moment where I'm like, because I got two masters. So I got two masters. I got my bachelor. And I was just like, I love studying. I love studying. So it's like it just is natural to me. But then after, when you start working and you start kind of like seeing the fruit of your labor, your and then you realize that like this is really not how you want to live the rest of your life.
Hmm.
It's like, who am I just having those big question.
It's a really, if I may interject, because also one of the reasons why I do this platform is many people, and I think I shared this with you before, many people told me that I should write books because I've had so many life experiences that make people go, there's no way you've done all these things. And I feel like, as you know, I feel like I've barely tapped the surface. But
Yes.
it's interesting to hear you. First of all, I was also a very good student. I mean, hearing you say, "Oh, you're such a good student," oh, it's like it made me laugh when we were working together because I was like, "Oh my God, I haven't really heard that statement in a really long time." But I was always that little girl who was the smartest little girl, did all my homework, was a good girl, But I definitely had also a rebellious side, but nothing that would like cause problems to my family. But I always wanted to deliver, always wanted to be the best, always wanted to be the top, no matter what I put my hands to or my brain to. Always a visionary ever since I was a little girl.
Alicia, I want to cut you out really quickly because it's
Yeah,
so, that I noticed that because when we were part of the challenge, I like noticed you and I was like, that girl is an intellectual. That girl is super smart. You reminded me of me. Why? Because you were one of the only people who took notes the entire time. And I do the same thing. And I was like, that woman is reminding me of me. So sorry
I'm
to cut you
always,
out.
I'm, no, no, no.
Yeah.
I'm always with the notebook. I'm always scripting. And as you were talking, I was like, I knew that through the challenge too, but I was like, okay, wait, I need to know more. But now as you're talking, I'm going, oh my God, this is me. This is me. This is like a soul sister. Like age is irrelevant. Like I don't even ever think that, because even though I know like our world does, I just don't, because if your soul's connected, your soul's connected. And it's
100%.
really, I mean, I just love this so much because I do love intelligent people. I do love curious people. I do love great conversations. I do love an expansion of mindset. I do love success. And I love being able to, go out into the world and share that. And how can you share your story and be of inspiration? And it's interesting how you came out making six figures. Now, I was just having this conversation recently, and I don't think, and maybe we had this conversation recently ourselves in my generation. It was very rare, and it wasn't that it didn't happen, but it was very rare that a student came out of the university and landed a six-figure income. Maybe they were landing between 50 and 100, 80 being a sweet spot, like 80,000, let's say. But I did not get a scholarship. I got offered a lot of programs to go to, but I couldn't afford to go to them. So even though I still went to all private universities, when I came out of school, boy, oh boy, was I in debt. And I had to like take action and make sure that all those things are paid for. And it's interesting because it does determine the kind of decisions that you end up making or forced to make, because you might be a risk taker, but you got reality, which is you got to pay the bills, you got to pay your school loans back. And even our recent times, as living in the United States with our current president, how he's trying to give more leeway to people who've gotten education and take a little pressure off. And yet at the same time, I'm like, I think that's great. But at the same time, my capitalistic brain slash person who took responsibility and paid back every dime is like, well, wait a minute. This is part of the learning curve. Like, don't you have to be responsible and accountable for that? So I have a very like mixed emotion, but it was also interesting what you said coming into the industry and making six figures. When I came into my industry, which is the entertainment industry, I always said it was like rubbing two sticks together. As an artist, it's like you're lucky if you make a living. And yet my brain is science, pre-med. So I was very science, art, and spirituality, very much like you. And so it was very conflicting not making the kind of money. And I've said this to today. It's like
Yes.
I'm a multimillionaire brain, and that's not an ego statement. It's like I have so much, as to offer and collectively like zone in to manifest that. And at the same time, I've been in an industry that for those that have and the those that don't. And even though those that don't still can make six figures, which I've done consistently for most of my career, thank God, after rubbing two sticks together and figuring it out, it still wasn't enough. But more importantly, when I did, will never forget this. The very first year I broke six figures, I was like, wow, money really doesn't buy happiness. I
Mm.
did not like the people I was surrounded by. I did not, I mean, here I was on a hit show, first season, hugely creative people, all the things, but the things that I saw and the entities that were involved with it just was like, get away from me. I want nothing to do with this. And I had to really, it was during 9/11, ironically, that year, 2001. And so there I was, also in my early 30s. And
Wow.
it was like, and I had a dog that really needed to have veterinarian care, which was very expensive, and I lived on my own. I had already gone through divorce. I'd already then also gone through domestic violence, so I was on my own purposely, and taking charge of my life, and always, as I was since I was a little girl, being responsible. But I was really, really clear that though I wanted to make all the money I could possibly make, I was really woken up to, this does not guarantee happiness. This does not guarantee purpose. This does not guarantee a fulfillment. This does not guarantee that you're going to be surrounded with the kind of caliber of people you imagine. There was just a collection of things that I walked away from, and I did not go back to that job. I went on to do other shows. But hearing you, I see it like this. No matter the level of success, I think people either take the role of leader or sheep. And there's a
100%.
lot of followers versus a lot of thinker leaders.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you just, to me, like for you as a female, a young female who was a great student, never would have guaranteed you that that meant you would have ended up in Europe to get your education in Switzerland and then get your offers, to get your master's in Berkeley. I mean, one of the most sought out universities in the United States. Ironically, my family lives there, by the way.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you,
Berkeley.
it's
Oh
just
my God.
they
We have so
they we didn't always live there. It's actually been in more recent years that my sister and brother-in-law purchased a house there, like about 7, 8 years ago, and
my,
raised one of my nieces there towards the tail end of her high school. But that's where they base out of.
it
So
is so pretty out there.
yeah, and they're both in tech. Funny
Oh,
enough.
really? Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, when you made that move to Europe, I mean, economically, most people can't even get out of Morocco.
Yes. It is definitely so I got a scholarship to go to the school in Europe, but mainly it was not actually it wasn't a school that was very, very expensive either. But like living in Europe, living in Switzerland, it was Switzerland is really, really expensive. It's like living in New York or like
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
So I was lucky enough to actually I just have my had my family paid for my housing, my food, but then obviously like as a student just giving me the minimum that I needed to be able to finish up my schooling. So I would absolutely say that like my parents like fought behind it to also like make sure to support that, you know?
Do you see that like amongst your peers, your girlfriends, your boyfriend, the male friends and the girlfriends that you were raised with? Do you think, and I don't know this for a fact, do you think that you had a different trajectory than many of your peers, or did all your peers have the same opportunities that you were spending time with?
I would say I had different opportunities. Some of them have, it also really is based on personality, right? And it really based
Yeah.
on curiosity. Like I have just always been a loner in a lot of ways.
Mm,
So like I have some of my friends who are still here in Morocco, never left Morocco, and they
mm.
actually are all married with kids, which I don't have because I'm busy doing a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So and so they definitely in terms of opportunities, they didn't have the opportunity that I had, but they're raised in families. They're like that's the kind of environment that they're like building for themselves, and that's where the majority of their day goes. So like really just taking care of the kids and making sure they're so that I have that star. Some of them are not married yet, but they're basically just either some of them are doctors here in Morocco, but they never left. So there's that group, and there is another group that I met in Switzerland that actually came from Morocco and then ended up being in Switzerland. So like a group of Moroccan um who had that same opportunity, and then we met each other there without knowing each other. And so it is just so interesting because most of them are still in Europe right now, working
Mm.
in London, Switzerland, Paris, and we're still very close. But they've been moving in tribes. They've been moving in groups of people, and they're always together, and they're still together. And what they do, they go to work, they have their 9 to 5, and then on the outside, they go out, they drink, they have fun, they eat food, but that's where how I perceive what they actually do with their lives. Which is totally the norm, and what is like more common and what we see more. And so from my side, I love them. I really love them. I'm going to see all of them soon, right? They're all here in Morocco right now. We're going for a wedding. We're meeting for a wedding, and I love all of them so much, but I've never really made my decisions based on where my friends are. And all of them have made their decisions of where they're going to work based on where everyone is going to work, so that we all stay together. But for me, it's like I actually want to be alone. I want to discover something new. And I just really like realized that like the 9 to 5 kind of like way of living life is just not something like I've always been really big like questioning purpose. I've been really
Hmm.
trying to understand what that is. Like what is it? I would like spend like I would never want to go out, to be honest. And I would just want to read, and I would just want to really understand the world, understand the mind, understand the universe. And I would be so drained just like going to like, like right now, like of course I like to go and have a little drink here and listen to some good music, some good bands, and be with my friends. But regularly, it was never me. It would drain me actually. It would
I
make
really relate to this. I really, really,
yeah.
I never thought of myself as a loner. Ironically, I've always aligned with men who are loners,
Oh,
which I've always been like, well, wait a minute, because I think of myself as being very social, or because I love interacting with people, as I believe you do too. Like I know you have that light in you, but I understand yeah, I mean, I was never really a drinker, so like going to a bar was not my like, oh, that's just burning on my brain. Never, ever. I could have a whole liquor cabinet and I don't even look at it. It
yeah.
just doesn't resonate with me. Um, or I love great music or theater as well, but again, I'd rather have an intimate dinner party and with people, and have again great conversation, and really really listen and really resonate and really see why we like running together. But ironically, as you said it, what you said about these units that move together, so to speak, right? It's like a security blanket. It's like a how do I want to say, not enabling, but interdependent. I too was never that person. I mean, I have childhood friends going back to 5 years old, but I really haven't lived or gone to school around those people since I was 15. And then, I had my university friends and my boarding school friends, and certainly the friends that I've created throughout this industry, which, sometimes I go, God, I can't even count on one hand. And that's generally not been me, because like I was the president of my class of over 750 kids. Like I was always popular because I like so many different kind of people, and I made them feel seen and heard. So it didn't matter if you were, smoking pot on the hill outside, or you were the jock athlete, or you were the science
Love
nerd,
that.
or you're the artist. It was just who I was. It's like you all matter. You all have value,
I
you
love
know.
that.
And because I do believe it's treat others as you want to be treated too. And I know that growing up in a family industry like the fashion industry, and it was your customers that kept your doors open and kept the roof over your head. And I was very conscious of that from the time I was a very little girl, that you know, how you treated people was how that, it's interesting. I don't want to jump ahead, but I've always said it doesn't matter the awards you get, the money you make, nobody will remember that stuff. The only thing they're going to remember is how you leave them feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that's ever going to come down to is how did you make them feel? Did you make
Absolutely.
them feel value? Did you make them feel welcome? Did you make them feel better than they came into the space with you? Did you make them think? Did you make them cry because they got to release, because they felt safe? Did they laugh because you're just so honest they can't even believe you're telling them these stories, you know? So I was always that little girl. And why I think that I also, because I experienced so much as a little girl, which I know I shared, but not to lean into that story or keep telling that story. But when you're faced with parents who separated a lot from the time you're a little kid, when you see your parents then finally divorce after 20 years, which was kosher over here, but yet no other friends had gone through that experience. And then because of a United States recession that was actually more worldwide because of oil embargoes and all the things, my family lost 3 generations of businesses. And then my father died. And it was all within 5 months, and we were children. And it definitely makes you step back. So no matter how successful I was when I put my mind to it, and I knew that nobody could take away my intellect, and nobody could take away my artistic vision, and nobody could take away just who I was here to be. That came into a whole nother, like, well, if all that can disappear, then what's the point? Like, what's the point of us showing up being the best? What's the point of, but I don't think I consciously realized that, but I realized much later that must have seeped into my consciousness somehow or another. Didn't mean I still didn't show up trying to be the best or was the best
Yeah.
or integrated with the best. So, you know, getting back to yourself with being a loner, I think, like, again, just because I've been there, I mean, I would imagine that there's a lot of women who want their independence, but don't know how or don't have the support, and are more or less treated like, forgive me, second class citizens. And I personally have this whole observation of the world that I think you'll understand. Women in general, and I don't mean like we shouldn't be top leaders and top income earners and all that, because you and I both know otherwise.
I love
I
you.
think I love you, but I think sadly, not because this is our reality, but sadly, because the world is wired in a certain way, and especially with very powerful cultures outside of the United States, because it's a much bigger world than the United States. We both know this. There's
Mhm.
a lot of cultures that do not value the existence of a woman other than to procreate and to create and to carry on their legacy. And even then, it's challenging because of wars and all the things, right? So I find that women sadly are just not valued. And I try to tell this to women even here in the United States, because I've seen things go backwards. I saw things fought for in the 70s, way before you were born, and I was a little girl, when women were standing up for rights. And because of it, you and I can come here or be here and get a paycheck and have a bank account and keep our name and not have to get married, and can own our own property and can travel freely and can make love with anybody you choose to or not, and like everything, and have the rights to your body, have the rights to your mind, And sadly, some of that's really being challenged now. And I say to women, this is so much bigger if you do not step into this power and speak up. This will all go backwards. No different than a lot of other countries that you wouldn't even, many women have been born into this not even knowing the history and the struggle. So you coming from a country, from my observation, that it's very clear the male is above the female. I mean, that was really hard for me. And I knew it going in. I was very cognizant going in. I wasn't kidding myself. I was one of 3 American women on this crew. And
But
I
so
was
what do you mean by like Felicia? So how do you see it different in the United States? Because I see it in the United States as well, you know?
oh no,
I
I do too. I do
yeah,
too. No, that's the joke. People pretend it doesn't exist, but it
yeah.
is all there. And people are like, I'm like, take off your blinders, people. Women, take off your blinders. This is really what it is. And how you don't see this is beyond me. No religion, no right wing Christian, no, Orthodox Jew, no like these, you know, Mormon. It doesn't matter the religion because it's all across and it's not just religion, it's just infiltrating the soil. I wasn't raised that way. I was not raised that way. I was raised around really powerful women who were
Mm.
real matriarchs. And whether it was out of survival or desire or both, they were always trying to raise the bar. They were always getting higher education. They were always doing things uncomfortably. They were always doing things that weren't necessarily they were more pioneers than they were otherwise, which is, you know, why I was given the space to go out and do anything I wanted. And the reality was I knew that that was possible, whether it was going to Wall Street or becoming